Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to completely flip the script on everything you think you know about media. We spend hours every single day absorbing content, debating it, sharing it, and honestly stressing over it. But what if we've been focusing on the completely wrong thing this whole time?
Seriously, just consider this for a second. What if the actual message you're absorbing right now isn't the words I'm saying, but the glowing screen you are staring at, right? We just naturally assume that the content of what we read or watch is the most important part of the whole experience. But today, we're going to challenge that core assumption from the ground up.
Section 1. The Illusion of Content. We're going to dive right in by looking at Marshall McLuhan, a brilliant thinker from the 1960s who completely erased the line between a message and how it gets delivered.
McLuhan is famous for this incredibly powerful phrase, "The medium is the message." Now, we're so used to thinking that a medium just, delivers a message, but McLuhan argued they are exactly the same thing. Think about it. Moby Dick as a printed book, Moby Dick as a cinematic movie, and Moby Dick as a spoken word tale around a campfire, those are completely different stories because they're completely different experiences. Complaining that a movie isn't exactly like the book kind of misses the point entirely. A movie can only ever be a movie. It's this distinct experience of the medium itself that actually alters our environment.
And McLuhan had this brilliant metaphor for why we usually miss this. He said that the content of a medium is just like a juicy piece of meat carried by the burglar to distract the watchdog of the mind. Isn't that wild? We get so deeply obsessed with the plot of a TV show or the text of a social media post that we're totally blinded to the fact that the device itself is sneaking in and rewiring our brains and our habits.
Section 2. The Invisibility of Environments. This is where we shift our focus from individual gadgets to the invisible ecosystems they build around us.
So media ecology is basically the study of these intricate, intangible backgrounds. Because we use a medium day in and day out, it actually conditions our senses to tune into some things while completely ignoring others. It alters our whole socially constructed world of meaning. But because this environment is just our everyday normal experience, it is incredibly difficult to even notice it's happening.
The whole vibe is perfectly captured in this old anthropologist saying, "We don't know who discovered water, but we're pretty sure it wasn't the fish." Well, guess what? We are the fish. The sheer ordinariness of our everyday tech makes its massive influence completely invisible to us. When a new medium first shows up, sure, we notice the novelty for a little bit. But once it fades into the background of our lives, that is when it really starts pulling the strings. Section 3. Rewiring Human Senses. To back this up, McLuhan essentially mapped out human history to prove how new tech literally changes which of our senses actually dominate society.
He traced human history through 4 massive epochs. And these weren't slow, gradual shifts, by the way. The world was violently wrenched from the tribal to the literate to the print and finally the electronic era by very specific inventions, like the phonetic alphabet, the printing press, and the telegraph. It is absolutely fascinating to see how this charts our sensory evolution. Up in the tribal age, the dominant sense was the ear. It was this acoustic, communal place where hearing was believing, and everyone just lived in the present moment. But then, boom, the alphabet and the printing press drag us into the literate and print ages. Suddenly, the focus shifts to the eye. Human experience became incredibly visual, but also more detached and solitary. Finally, right around 1850, with the telegraph, we hit the electronic age, and our primary sense receptor shifts right back to the ear and the central nervous system.
To really get why this matters today, we have to draw a sharp contrast here. The print age basically trained our brains to think in a visual, step-by-step linear logic. It created independent thinkers who could just sit and read a book in total isolation. But the electronic age, it totally shattered that isolation. It's acoustic, it's tactile, and it happens all at once. Suddenly, how we feel becomes way more important than what we logically think.
Section 4. The Global Village Today. Which brings us right to our modern doorstep. What does it actually mean for us to live in this electronic and now digital age? McLuhan coined a term I bet you've heard before, the global village. Because of instant communication, closed-off human systems just don't exist anymore. We have literally re-tribalized. A crisis, or even just a rumble of empty stomachs on the literal other side of the planet, vibrates instantly right in our living rooms. Our central nervous systems are essentially stretched across the entire globe. Everyone's business is now everyone else's business. And honestly, as a result, we're all just a little bit testy.
Just look at the dynamic here. The kid with his guitar is explaining to his dad how TV and folk music bring thought and action closer together, increasing social involvement. He says, "We again live in a village, get it?" It's a funny little moment, but it hits the nail right on the head. Electronic media totally collapsed distance and forced us out of our private little printed bubbles back into this intense, unavoidable social involvement.
So what does that mean for us right now in the digital age? Well, digital technology hasn't ended the electronic age. We are still very much wired in, but it has changed the environment by making it incredibly personalized. So instead of one big, unified mass consciousness, we've splintered. We're now forming these highly specialized digital tribes around really narrow beliefs, interests, and niches. And as you've probably noticed online, this has predictably led to a really contentious, almost tribal warfare mentality.
Section 5. The Faustian Bargain. This is where things take a slightly darker turn. Understanding the medium is great, but we also have to evaluate it. Let's look at Neil Postman, a scholar who took McLuhan's ideas and added a pretty stark warning to them.
Postman believed that our main job when it comes to media ecology is to actually make moral judgments. He introduced this chilling idea that absolutely every new technology presents a Faustian bargain, a literal deal with the devil, where you're trading a piece of your soul for some temporary earthly gain.
He stressed that we really need to stop just blindly accepting whatever new tech comes our way. As Postman warned, a new technology sometimes creates more than it destroys, and sometimes it destroys more than it creates, but it is never one-sided. For every shiny new convenience or bit of instant knowledge we get, something profoundly human is being systematically eroded in the background. We have to start asking ourselves if society is actually gaining more than it's losing.
Postman was especially worried about screens. He argued that screen-based media fundamentally changes the way we get information, shifting it from rational, deep thinking to something purely emotional and presentational. The environment of a screen just demands amusement, right? And because of that, our public discourse, serious debate, and deep societal questions are constantly being watered down into shallow entertainment. Basically, triviality completely trumps seriousness.
Okay, so how do we actually survive this? Postman gave us 3 crucial defensive questions that we absolutely must ask about any new technology before we let it take over our lives. First, what is the actual problem this technology is trying to solve? Second, whose problem is it really? And third, if it actually does solve a legitimate problem, what brand new problems is this tech going to create? We can't just blindly bow down to the altar of speed and efficiency.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've explored how the medium totally reshapes our senses, how it's thrust us into this chaotic digital global village, and the sometimes dangerous deals we make with our devices. So I want to leave you with one final, stark question about your own daily habits. Postman wondered if we've allowed mere information to become a substitute for actual wisdom. Ask yourself, as you've been watching this explainer, what is this very screen taking away from you right now? Thanks so much for watching, and stay curious.